Hey, there it goes. Hello? Beep boop, fools, it's me. Set up studio mode while I wait so I can go into game. Oh my god, that cool, it just worked. Awesome, I love that for me. It never just works, so when it just works, that's pretty nice. That's pretty cool. That make a me scream in joy.
A sheep fucking me.
He's a fucking you? I'm sorry, I don't know that.
Sheep.
Daily, weekly. I have done no objectives on Willow Street. Is that what you meant?
No.
The top thing?
Yeah.
13 complete objectives. You have a different map than me?
Complete objectives in Tanglewood Drive.
Wow, that sucks.
Detect ghosts with motion sensor.
Same.
Survive hunts.
Great. So I have Willow Street. I guess that gets people playing different shit.
Weird.
Weird.
On your weekly?
Yep.
Yeah.
To be fair, I have not done any of that. I am one match away from having my my campground. Hey. Hi, Milo. Your timing is deplorable. How can I help you, son? How can I help you, son? Here. Here we are. Here's your chair. You may join me. You may sit upon it. Let me fix your stairs. Milo. Where'd you go? You're doing circles underneath me. How cool. How lovely. I gotta sit... Oh, shit. There. Now I can kind of see my chat. Alright, cool. So, this was something I had more or less figured out before I changed things around, but that seems to be working. I just want to see a chat. Alright. Cool, whatever. Let's switch to game. Boop. Hey, bud. What are you doing underneath me? Why is your timing awful? Connecting. Piece of confetti goes in front of your screen. Enjoy confetti. Great room. It's a private room. I am a private part. And I go and tell him, and I give him the code.
The last photos I have up here are pretty alright. There's a skull, there's a music box, there's your dead body.
Yeah, well, you know, it happens to the best of us.
I know, it just like... But yours is like stuck underneath the camera. Like you died and we went, well, the camera has to go here anyways.
I have cards. Hi!
Yeah.
My photos are like human skull. Probably a temperature. A thing on... Really boring, frankly. Hi, Milo. Can I help you, son? What are you doing, honey? I'm trying to set up to play video game. I would like to play video game. I've had a day and I'm playing video game. I'm going to tell Blue Sky I'm playing video game. That was wrong. I hit the wrong thing and almost gave out the room code. I hit the wrong thing and then my body explodes. Chris is popping in and out of my screen. Waiting for me to Halloween in September. Post there. Maybe now someone will join us on a lovely adventure. So you need Tanglewood, huh?
I need one Tanglewood.
Screw it. Let's do Tanglewood. Good warm up.
Good warm up.
Yeah, it be fallen.
Do be fallen. Aw, skeet. Okay.
All right, let's party. Let's hit the button.
Make sure your loadout's in, okay?
Yeah, I think I left it alone. I'm with the homies. Let's go.
Oh, wait.
No. Waiting is for fools.
Politicians.
Do they wait? Capture 3 videos. Cleanse the area near the ghost. Detect sounds with a paramic, you dumb fool. Milo, I will put you to bed. You do this every time. I will slap you. Is my mic on? Yeah, I'm good.
I'm not hearing you.
My thing says I'm good. Mic is on. I also have desktop and game capture both going, so let's not have that echo. There we go. No. That's... Oh, well, fuck us. We're done.
I think it's Hantu.
You're a fucking...
Yeah. All right.
Strong start. But for the sake of argument... You know, I was wondering how possible that was to do. There should be an achievement for that. I'd just call it nope. It'd just be like...
Rating.
Achievement. Nah. Skipping that.
Rainy day. Load up all the gear. Get there. You know?
Wait, this is haunted?
Oh.
Leave.
Ghosts?
Ruh-roh, the Scooby-Doo paradox.
Okay, capture a video. Repel with incense and 2 moving
Oh,
sounds.
that one's much harder, but we only need one, so whatever. Good start, good start, good start. I'm on my A game today. How's everyone else doing?
Yes. I heard the click and I went, that's the engine.
Look, I think I was just clicking back into the window and I had an issue. I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm
Oh, that was excellent.
multitasking. Well, fuse box in the garage and on.
Oh.
Hey, good news, it's not a voodoo doll. Hey, good news, a garage hiding hole and the one in the main hallway are open.
Not a mirror. Check the master room. I don't... what's our average temperature on?
Oh, I kind of stopped paying attention. I was getting around 10-ish. I'm getting 8s and 9s in the dining room so far. Oh, there it goes. So, not here. What about the kitchen? 9.6. Yeah, it'll warm up over time. I'm gonna go in the basement. Everyone loves the spooky basement.
Everyone.
I'm thinking... No. Okay. Must be music box. So I can think of that neither of us have looked at. Unless it's the world's smallest tarot cards and the ghost threw them on the ground, maybe. 5, 11, double check the garage, now the temp's gone. No. Looking over here. Screaming at the walls. Drinking lots of beer.
Oh,
What?
radio on. It is in the boys' bedroom.
Have we found the bone yet?
No,
Okie.
but I'm sitting here on 4 degrees.
I'm gonna let my hand rest. Because holding that button for the entire time gets old. Alright. Well, Milo, why are you fussing now? Oh, they're playing. Yeah, it's fucking music box. Photo. Done.
Hey!
Boys!
Stop it.
Singing for the stream is great, but at least warn me first so I can properly set up. My one viewer demands it. I think that's me. I don't see the bone anywhere. Am I stupid? Did I grab it and forget? No. That's good. I would have been a little concerned. I mean, it's somewhere. Can I just pop you, like, right here? Easily. Alright, you do a bone hunt, because I'm off my rocker. I'm going to bring in stuff and things. Everyone loves stuff and things.
Hey, I love stuff.
And things? Look. Dots. UV. Oh. Was that you?
Yeah, I turned one too many.
Oh, when the circuit breaks, instead of all lights at once, they like go out in a sequence. I just saw like bedroom like, oh. Neat.
It's good to know.
Turning on my like it's a fast sequence, but
Yeah,
it
but
is funny.
it like actually trips it.
Yeah. I brought you a book. This works. Sailing away. Okay.
Can't see it.
This is some tiny one on some stupid spot like a camera or their carpet or something. Double check the rugs in the living room and stuff real close, kind of a thing. The basement corners. Maybe the closets. I don't know.
Fuck.
Where was it?
In the nursery, but it's like right in the doorway.
Bummer.
I gotta hand it to you. Funnier if you can see it.
Lights switched. Turn on the computer. I got a UV in there. Check the computer. See if it did something on that. Average sanity 78. You're the lowest at 73 or some shit. Like I can see dots on the ceiling outside. That makes me happy for reasons I can't entirely explain. Hey, for the sake of argument, put one right here. That's right. We will see dots down the hallway. No one can stop me. We now have a UV thingy. Boop. Not a UV. EMF. Nope. Get a photo of that. There's a spirit box, but I didn't bring a sound recorder.
Get a photo of that.
Click. Well,
Yep.
yeah. Oh, they're both sitting right outside there.
No, I was like, oh, what?
Temp is down to like 3 degrees, but not freezing yet. I've seen no decided evidence.
There,
This
can you
thing.
hear me? Are you...
Well, I don't have the sound in yet. Sure.
No, but it makes noise to replace. Oh, that's pretty cool.
What?
Spirit box.
Okay. Boop. Oh, I just saw a Dot's ghost. It's a crawler.
Oops. That's the case. We should lower the other dots by.
Yeah, we should.
It did give me spirit box, so it could be arranged for that. Get some more swing. Can't have too many crucifixes.
I just opened and shut a door.
Jeez, I'm sub 50. You're 62.
Yeah, it's active. I am hearing a lot of movement and seeing nothing resembling UV. So I'm pretty close just writing that off. I will do the salt test though. Pop one in the hallway. Yep, I hear him at 5.
It throw the book.
EMF 5. Are you friendly? Are you nearby? Oh.
Excellent.
Did you get the...
I got the door move
Oh.
video.
It also had dots right here.
I didn't get the dots.
Okay, can you grab that so I don't record it in here? Okay. Let me double check what we have. Turn on talking. Okay. Well, yeah, I got that on sound, so there we go. Sound's done. I guess I need to move our dots lower to the ground. Where's the other one? like, I don't fucking know where to put this one, honestly. It's fucking F and screw it, move the camera? I don't know. I keep seeing it crawl through around here. Yeah, I'm turning off EMF because we super have it.
Yeah.
I'm throwing out the salt because we don't need it. I am going to go check my sanity and maybe pop some medication. Oh, Spritzy's here.
Fritz?
Hi, Spritzy. Sorry, I was very focused on my fantasy job of being good at hunting ghosts. With my wavering sanity. Pal with incense one's chasing, capture video of the ghost. So if you get a video of Dot's ghost, that counts. What?
I saw Dots, I couldn't get it.
Yeah, the tripod camera's not going to do it. We'd almost be... Well, there it goes. It's doing Dots a lot. We'd almost be better off just putting the camera on the ground. Like, genuinely.
Yeah, no, but it's just not enough.
So we cannot... we need video of the ghost. So we either piss it off and get it to an event and get its video, or...
Got music box.
Yeah, that's true. I have paranormal sound thing. That I got tagged on with the mic, so... I think that was an overview.
We're still down a video and a photo.
Yep.
But we got the crucifix on both sides of that.
I've got paramic up. There's a lot of noises. One of them's you. Oh, that's gonna be. Make a noise, you dirty slut from hell.
Round.
It's not?
That was last round.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, fuck this piece of shit.
Yeah. Incense and video of ghost.
Okay. That book is worthless. Bye. So, evidence. We know we have EMF 5, Dots, Spirit Box. It's a wraith. That's why it's not touching our salt. It turned the lights on in the nursery, I guess. So, here's our options. Okay, we can keep the Dots in its room where it's most likely to set them off, or we can set them in the hallway where we're more likely to get a long shot of it. Motherfucker. Which is kind of what I'm inclined to do at this point, because we keep whiffing it. It is active as shit in here. So it's doing stuff. I'm going to put one right... Yeah, be very careful with our videos. So here's what I've done. I've set up... Take the other sandy med, I guess, because I'm going cuckoo banana nuts, unless you want to just try to get hunted, which I guess is a thing we have to do. Do you have an incense on you?
No.
Here. Incense for you. And we do need a photo of something, but...
Need a photo and a video and...
Fine, I'm on photo.
But you
You
did say we were doing.
on photo, I'm on video. Or alternate that. You have video, I have photo. We just... Go, Dots, ghost. Please.
Oh.
Nope. That was an event.
Moving close.
Yeah, it's doing that a lot. That's why I put this out here. It's like, it's moving. Spawn from a lot of places, the problem. Give me Dots. I'm going to take the camera in the room and I'm going to put it on the ground. Tripod is not helpful at this point. I'm going to put it in the hallway like a weirdo. Okay, I haven't seen a lot of Dots when we're together. I'm going to try stepping outside. I gave you the incense. It just threw the fucking video camera.
Got it with the camera in hand.
Like, it's been doing stuff with both of us. It just hasn't been doing what we need it to. And the power's off, so mind that. it more active when I leave or less?
What difference? Throwing stuff.
You're at average 28.
So.
I'm looking at you. I'm looking at it. I'm on standby. One of us will record this fucker. It has to be him and nothing else. It's still in that room.
Keeps moving the freaking door.
You'll see your breath.
Yeah.
Alright. Milo, get down.
Milo, don't mess with my glasses.
Come on, man. Oh, well, I saw it right under you briefly.
It's like...
Saw, like, its head, yeah. Like, oh, thanks, dude. Really helpful. You're welcome to move him around. It's in a really rough room for a crawler. We can do the music box. We can.
Alright, music box.
You're gonna want to come pop some sanity before we do that, because I think it will automatically hunt if I play it near you. You're at thinking single digits, so...
You're at 40s. You want me to take this, or you want to
grab the last one. If you're in the house with me, it will go off and start a hunt this if your sanity hits 0.
Alright, okay.
That's cursed objects in a nutshell. If it hits 0, we're just fucked.
I got video if you got photo.
I do have photo, if I just don't fuck it up. Cue the song! Don't fuck it up, don't fuck it up, don't fuck it. My only beef with this incense is I mistake it for the lantern a lot, and that's what screws me over. Okay, can you go hit the fuse box real quick?
Sure.
Don't fuck it up, don't fuck it up, don't fuck it up. I'm bad at sports. Thank you. Makes a difference to me. Okay, are you ready with video? Because that's going to be the big one.
On video, you tell me where you're putting it?
I'm going to put it right in this fucking hallway. I would recommend having a spot to hide lined up.
Dibs on this closet.
Alright, well, you're recording, so if you think you can get there and live, go for it. You ready?
Ready.
Now, go! Running. Did it get you? Did it get you?
No.
It's dark in here. It says it is mega spookies. Please say we got. Also, please tell me when the hunt's done. It's pitch black in here. Are we good? Yeah, we're good. Go, 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 go.
I'm out. We got the video. Holy shit. Oh.
And I got the photo. Golden.
I know.
Golden.
Oh my god, that's A. Oh, capture the fucking video. Repel the incense.
Okay.
First round, we were too scared. We came back.
We got it. We're good. We're good. So, yeah, we just need to go get our courage. We left it at the base.
13 average sanity. Make sure that we both click brave. Then hit the button. Brave. Holy shit, that came up and I'm like, record. Just fucking save it. Just fucking save it. Throw camera.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and as it passes by, it's moving the camera more than it's moving the goddamn door.
Oh. There, I got you your weekly. You're welcome. Enjoy that extra $1,000. Oh.
X plus my weekly plus.
Yeah.
Plus the 2x for the bonus. That is almost 5,000. Jesus.
All right.
That's a level by itself.
That's a lot. I got 3,000 plus Satan number. All right. Sodi. So how you holding up, Spritzy? My one viewer of the moment. Hi, Spritz. How are you? Hi.
Any requests?
You want to bet on who dies? You want? That's what we're good for.
Bet.
That's what we're good for. Well, you got to find your login so you can do those bets, little man. Oh. I did hit level 92. I'm one step closer to prestiging. What?
You're now 92?
I'm 92.
Oh. Because it still says 91, but yours is a thing.
Yeah, sorry. I was having a... Oh.
Fine. I was just like...
Right, this is my last woodwind if we get it right. I have to live, but if I get it, Ranger Challenge done.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be something. All right. Ready when you is. Nothing from Liz yet. She's probably in Baldur's Gate again, or Mason is, or something. I think she's working again today, actually. I don't know. I don't know when she gets home. I don't know what she's doing.
Incense and...
I'm just a dumb flirt that wants to kiss people on the mouth. Okay. Incense, photo. You know, I don't even really care. I just need a victory. The details aren't that important, but they are nice.
They are nice.
Just need to let it go once in a while, and it's just like, this ghost is doing nothing for 6 years. What if you left the truck and I immediately hit the button and just left you here? Oh, there's the bone. Floating. Like to see a mysterious floating bone? Oh.
You get bonus points because it's floating.
No. We should. It's an extra haunted bone. But I don't write the damn rules.
Oh, Ouija board.
Cool. Get that photo and we go in there. We got the main 2 problems solved. Power's on. Go to
Here's the bone.
Oh, you want a video of it?
Here's the bone.
We took the bone. You can always
Where is the bone?
ask it its age or something.
What's your age? How old are you?
It's in the bathroom, by the way. That was an easy one.
What's your favorite room?
You dumb bitch. That's like 50% of your sanity right away, and usually a hunt starts. What? Nothing working?
No. Oh,
It's hunting. It's hunting and it's fast as dick. Bye. Wait.
Bye.
Did it slow down when it got close to you?
Until I got caught on that stupid bench. I did get a video of it, so you know.
I'm ashamed. I didn't have a video camera on me. I couldn't get one of your corpse. Well, that was a fast death.
Even?
Well, it depends. I'm at 64 already, and you were asking where its favorite room is.
I never got it to work. Like, oh shit, I walked away from it without saying goodbye.
Oh, that was a cursed hunt. So we have no idea. Okay, cool.
Oh shit.
Right. I'm glad I didn't die. It was beelining for me. I turned a corner, and then it was your turn. Not a banshee.
You turned a corner.
I don't know if you had a light on or what, but it lost interest in me real fast. It was coming at me at Mach
I was
fuck.
coming after you. I was recording, and it turned, and I'm like, I'm gonna run that way. I got caught on that stupid picnic table.
Alrighty then. On the upside, I'm so sane right now. I'm so sane right now. What?
You have a photo, but no video of the Ouija board. Get it to work. It's worth it.
Oh shit. Saw it. Bitch, I saw it. I could swear I saw a fucking ghost orb for a second. Ugh, okay. Lights, please. And we are going to put this right here. We're going to check you real quick while it's nice and bright. 2.4 is not freezing yet. I'm going to turn this on because I like seeing.
30 sink water.
Oh, cool. Look at that. That's what they called me. Nice ass. Back at the club.
I can pick up stuff. I think I'd be able to, like, open or close the door.
That'd be nice. You just kind of phase through them.
Yeah, I know I do, but, like, I can pick up a toilet paper and... Here.
Oh, shit.
Oh!
I didn't get that in time. Oh, shit! Alright, we got dots and ghost writing immediately. Dots, ghost writing. Diogen or Thay? Diogen I would kind of believe, because the... Were you hiding?
I didn't get a chance.
Oh, look, another bot. They always find me. I think they look for people who are dumb. The ghost was running at you fast enough you couldn't outrun it?
No, I got caught up. I didn't have time to turn around. It was literally, hey, there it is. Like, you could see me recording it, and I went to the right, and you could see that fucking picnic table I got caught.
Alright.
The dark stuff. You still need one photo, though.
That's fine. If I get dots ghost, I'm golden.
No, I'm just like...
Saying if you kept moving, you could outrun it. That would explain its speed towards me.
That does make sense. I didn't get a chance.
But Thay is also really fast at the start of a round. So that is a strange one to try and pin down. I'm working on it. Let's see. EMF 5 is nothing. Ultraviolet is nothing. Freezing temps is nothing. Ghost orbs I thought I saw, so Thay is the leader. I'm going to keep this. UV is nothing. What was it? Ghost orb or spirit box? Alright, test spirit box. Bring this bitch. Grab that. No, UV is nothing. Yep. Alright. So if I go on video, I can blind myself. I hate myself. I got Dots Ghost recorded. Can't see jack shit. Alright. There's 2 videos, but they're 2 damn good videos. Alright, well, I don't...
It was worth dying.
So, I don't need this other dots thing right now. Did you put the bunny in here?
Yeah.
Right on. The sound recorder, how am I holding up? I'm fine. Someone has to be. Rip Piggy.
Get out.
Alright. Alright. My fat head should probably be on the left when I play this game. Looking at it, but hey. Oop. Cool. I didn't even do anything yet. Is it safe? Fuck you. Where are you? Are you nearby? I literally just saw you. Don't hide from me. Spritz with gender bathroom is best is agender. Fuck you. Sorry. Where are you? Are you nearby? Is it safe? Am I beautiful? Do you want to kiss me on the mouth? Do you want to show yourself? Do you want to give me a sign? You want to talk to me? My pretty, pretty box of noises. Hi.
There's leaves.
I'm thinking it might not be Spirit Box. Alrighty. It was literally in the room. Then it wasn't. Alright. That's fine. I'll go back see if I can get video of the orbs that I thought I saw. If I saw orbs, then we know exactly what it... Can't just play ring toss like a normal dead guy, huh? Well, I guess you did play bowling. This one... Oh, no, that's not bowling pin. That's a sandy med. Night vision? Still pretty bad. Pretty bad. Oh, I saw Ghost Orb pop up again. It's Ghost Orbs. They're in there. I just can't see them from here. It's definitely Ghost Orbs. Alright, we know what it is.
If you went in with the hand camera, you'd probably...
I will. It's a fucking Thay, though. So, that's fine. I can do some things with that information. Don't worry about it.
Thay's,
I know Thay.
Well, I don't, and I want to.
Faye is the one that starts off extremely aggressive and fast and slows down as you, yeah. The longer you're around it, the slower and weaker it gets to the point that you can outwalk it by the end of it if you're here long enough. It's also one where if you ask the Ouija board how old it is, it will eventually, which I think you broke the Ouija board.
I broke the Ouija board because I walked away without saying.
Oh yeah, that is in pieces. Alright.
I fucked you over.
No, that's fine. I was just gonna get that video. Fucked yourself over more than anything, really.
Oh.
What?
Oh, that's you. Camera's moving around.
Yep. Okay, I'm gonna turn this off. Check it's in here. Yes, I just need it to do dots one more time. Show up on my screen. Let me take a picture of your peen. I just need it once. I have some strats I could do if I really want to push that, though. So we're gonna do this for now. Fuck you.
Frankly, just need to win.
Yeah. Well, if I just need to win, we're done. Yeah. But I am a greedy whore. So here we are. Hear me out. Step in my salt. Assault yourself. Please. What?
Oop, that hit.
What was it?
6.
I got object thrown, I guess. Alright. Oh, shit. Salt. Salt! Step in another one! Please. Ugh. Riveting gameplay. Just give me the salt! Oh. Okay, cool, thanks.
What about motion sensor?
Already done.
Video?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Now I just need one photo and I have the perfect plan.
Photo.
We don't talk about my audio. I mean, I have ways to do the audio, don't get me wrong.
I'll never, excuse me, worry about audio.
Yeah. Don't worry. We got stuff we can do. We got stuff we can do. I'm on it. I'm stupid and I'm on it. I'm stubborn and I'm on it.
You don't have a photo of the writing.
What do I got a photo of?
Or dirty water, dead body.
Oh. Successful reading on an EMF meter.
Oh, get that.
Yeah, I should get that. Glad I looked.
Seriously?
Get a sound. That's firelight. What else am I carrying? Okay. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I'm on it. I'm bouncing on it. I think at the moment you're literally the y'all sprints. There was other people briefly. They didn't even say hello.
Oh, the only one.
I know you're getting old and weak because I just keep hanging out, but here's this. Do something with it. This is trash. Get out of here.
The Clark carries away.
Let's go here as a backup plan. Do you want to talk to me? Do you want to tell me your secrets? Do you want to yell at my face? I'll come back and bring a firelight. Alright. And what? That's nothing? Like, a disembodied thing just walked through my salt, but you do you, game. Alright, whatever. Bots. What about bot? Oh, well, yeah, I guess bot. I don't know. I can dream of humans. It's Phasmo. There's drops right now. You gotta watch me for like 2 fucking hours, but there's drops right now. Okay, let's think. I need a firelight. How's my crazy? Low enough that I'm like, I don't know. I'm not here to die. Yet, I mean, oh, well, maybe I should be here to die. Okay, it's not gonna be a perfect game, probably because that, and it's a fucking thing.
Yeah.
And we got rid of our cursed hunt thing, so... I mean, I am here long enough, maybe? Maybe you can go... It's been 13 minutes. Every 2 minutes it ages. As long as I'm near it. So eventually it's slow and inactive, which we might already be experiencing somewhat.
No guarantee that it didn't start off weak and I just first hunt us to an immediate battle.
It doesn't matter how old its starting age is.
No, that's what I'm saying. It starts old, then it could have been...
No, that's not the point. The actual numerical age is just a random piece of data. The Thay is just the only one whose age increases over a run. It increases a random amount based on... There we go. There's an objective clear. Now it's just audio, a thing I usually am all over, and this time I forgot. Alright, you're still in here, right?
Plus side, after this you go to the Boys and Girls Club, we'll make a fortune on you portal equipment. And services.
Oh yeah, it's weakening. Okay. Not all bad, but it's really annoying because I need it to trigger things that make sounds. He's just a little guy. Oh my god, Chris. This little guy doesn't mean no harm. Spritz, Sorry, I'm with a lunatic. I cannot stress enough, you're incorrect. Thays are scary initially. This one has been nerfed by the fact I'm around it. So the way a Thay works is it starts off very, 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 very powerful. Just innately. They're very fast, ergo it's speed at the start, and they're very fucking aggressive and active. And the longer you're around it, say something, do something, give me a sign, make noises. I need noises to live. If you don't give me noises, I can't come.
Oh, blowing out firelight.
Blowing out firelight would be one if he'd do it, but he's not doing it. He's not doing anything. The Thay is being a baby. It's a baby Thay. It's a weak Thay. It's dumb. I'm calling you names, Goat Man.
Hey, I got the copy up there.
Please. I only have so much patience before I just say fuck it and bail. I'm turning the lights up. Alright. Oops, it got spookier in here. Do something. Preferably not trapping me.
You're at max sanity and this thing's at its doom.
Alright, this might be as good as this run gets, but I'll get the thing. Damn it all. Oh, wait. It's whispering again. I think that's a dupe, and I might just take it. Is that a dupe? Oh, no, that's talking. Oh, hello. Fuck you. Blow out my light, whore. Please. Thank you. Sound is done. Alright, what's left? Just chase me and make me go ee-oo, 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 ee-oo?
Repel with incense and...
Okay. Well, let's flip some shit around here. Boom. Alright, analyzing my environment. This is not a hiding spot. Grabbing a flashlight. We're gonna need it where we're going. Okay, that's kind of a hiding spot unless it's a crawler, then screw you. No, this one's gone.
Red tent. Blue tents.
I hate mini tents with a passion and will only do them as a last resort. Yellow tents open. I can't get them shut. It's not like a closet door where you just hold it shut. Okay, but this one's good. This one's golden, and I can turn on the lights when it is hunting. I have I have nowhere I can hide, and now we just fucking wait, I guess.
Sanity's at 79, so that did something.
Gotta get down to like 20. What happens if I just pick up pieces of Ouija board and play with them? Can I put it back? I don't want to get cornered over there.
Put it back together.
Do you like my toy? Now, it's a small enough nap. I should get enough of a hit just from the flashlight. With my Ouija, I'll wall you in. I'm gonna stay near it though, just so it fucking slowly gets shittier. Mostly because I think that's funny. If I can't be too near it, because if I'm near that fire, it slows my drain, and we're here to just vibe. So...
68.
think this does anything? Boom.
Can't do a lot of good, but boy, can I be...
Hey, you can come out here and play a mean game of cornhole.
I'm busy with my own project, but I appreciate you. It's art.
Play a mean game of cornhole. Nope. Hey, 1 point. Good point. 3 point. I'm back at these two. Damn.
56.
Oh, blew out the fire. We're in business. We are in business. Huh? Well, are we enjoying this great view? That means I can actually be out here and probably still drain decently.
47.
Mm-hmm.
No.
What?
Hello. Turn the lights back on.
Me? No.
Yeah. Lights on.
Oh, yeah. No, it had the light on. It turned off the campfire.
Turn this burner on in the red tent.
Yes. I'm trying to give myself signs and signals, and also my stream not being a straight up black screen.
Yeah.
At least something to look at.
No, something. I'm just...
Something to keep Spritz mildly entertained while I'm waiting to die. I mean live, I mean die. That would get me banned. That would probably get me banned. Excuse me.
Necessary. Not necessary.
It's not a Sarah stream unless I'm disgusting. Whoa! Alright, that blew my fucking incense real fast, so I guess I'll go grab a new one real quick. Sorry. It appeared behind me. Got Spritz screaming, Jesus. Like staring at its room, and I turn around, there's just a rotting face inside me. I'm like clipping in the bitch. Holy shit. Fuck you. Damn. Game couldn't do that on purpose. Have another light on. Fuck off. I do what I want, you nasty. Holy shit. I don't know where it's gonna spawn. I'm like, don't walk backwards. Never turn around.
They say your sanity's low.
That's fine. Low sanity was kind of the goal. Oh, wait. Oh. It flickered a light and I got excited. Yep, I gotta be at like 10 before it does it. It's old at this point. It doesn't like me, but it's old. Should be low enough at this point that it can hunt, but... Oh. Me?
Yeah.
Cool. Spooky bitch.
Get out of here, bitch.
Get out of here, ghost. Boom. Get out of here, host. Boom. It's not your house. Bonk. Spooky bitch. Bonk.
That was not me.
That one was not me.
He works.
Bonk.
Hang on, you ghost.
Bonk.
Your guts.
Bonk.
It's not your house.
Bonk.
Okay.
Bonk.
Get out of here, ghost.
Bonk. I can't speak confidently, but I want to say That a Thay is not affected by line of sight because of their speed situation? Oh, that's right, I have crosses. Well, that limits your effectiveness, doesn't it, homie? How's that other one doing? Oh, it's fine. I'll just take this. Oh! Ouch! That's a first.
But
I was holding it and it caught fire and burnt in my hand.
oh,
You forcefully drop it.
that's cool.
I didn't know that. I thought they didn't work when you're carrying them, so that's a nice touch. Just gonna go ahead and toss this one over here. Bonk!
You gotta go. Ghost.
Bam!
It's a house.
Bonk!
You spooky bitch.
Bam!
It's not your house.
Bonk!
Get out of here, ghost.
Bam!
Get out of here, ghost.
Bonk!
You spooky bitch.
Bam!
It's
Oh.
not your house. Oh my god, the hard part with all the words.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Or it's doing a really boring
door's
event.
closed.
Where is it?
You're insane, and it's at a 10.
Where is it? Oh, whoa! Oh, there it is. Oh.
Stop around.
Oh, yeah, they weren't kidding about getting old and slow.
You have the incense. You have to do is survive. You're about to get me. Trying to get to me. Haha.
Golden. All right. Bam. Bam.
Oh, goose! Okay.
Spooky bitch.
Not your house.
All right. I am amazing, and everyone should suck it.
Not particularly thrilled then. I thought it was damn impressive. I got that coffee cup up there. That was hard.
Oh, I was thinking, look at your bowling pin collection. That has grown significantly. All right. Well, now that we've robbed these fuckers blind under the guise of being ghost hunters, good job, Fanty. Let's go. You have Thay selected, correct?
Yes.
All right. Let's party.
Now that we've robbed them blind, good news, we got the ghost.
Good news. We know what it was, and I stood around going crazy while my very real imaginary friend, whose dead corpse is still there, stole all your shit. He died as part of the heist. It was all part of the plan. You're a fool if you thought you could stop us. He is intangible. Bitch. There's 3,400.
500. That's not bad for being dead.
Now I've unlocked Ranger.
I want to see that. That's
All
how
right.
you actually stand up.
All right. Well, you mean you could see it from there.
No, I'm over here.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Boom. There's Ranger. I did it. I got the funky new badge. Everyone, be jealous of my badge. Eventually, this spooky badge will get better because I will be Prestige 2, and then what?
Oh.
I don't know, because this is FIU or whatever, like some alphabet crap, and then all of a sudden, it'll be a 2. But hey, in the meantime, I got the campfire badge.
Unless you want to play it 30 more times or 90 when I don't die.
Oh, what's the one I need for the weekly?
Willow.
Willow. I should probably work on that while we got this big old double boogity. Oh, hey, look. 12?
Yeah.
Motion sensor. Survive 30 hunts. Oh, look, the back of Chris's head. Clonk.
I need salt.
What?
You had the board, and I wanted to see my 7 motion sensor, and I've survived 27.
Boop.
Fuck you.
Boop. 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 Okay, so I do feel like they did get faster with line of sight, but it was a slow and confused bitch for a good minute there. I said Willow Street, right? Okay.
Yep.
I'm not the biggest fan, but alright.
Hey.
I don't know the map.
It's... Yeah, I got nothing.
If you were ready, you have to re-ready, because I also clicked it.
I have to re-ready, because you ready, and then I ready.
Well, it's because I also changed it, so technically, even though it's the one map, I changed the map selection possibilities. They're like, did you really want it? Yeah, you sure you're still ready? Because this bitch might have chose Fart Wheeled. You don't know. I still think they should have the classic versions of these available somehow after they update them. I don't know if Willowfield, I don't remember this one being on the list, but I'm almost certain this one is an asset. So.
Oh, I guarantee you. I don't know if they're going to fix it.
Oh, wait, this house? Okay, no, never mind. I love this house. Yeah. This house is fine. This is, I can do this one. The basement's a bit of a bitch, but I thought it was the two-story, the one I hate, thus me complaining. This one's fine. This one is like the ghost is in the bathroom way too often, but that seems like the case in most of these urban homes. You know what I've never found in the bathroom? The ghost in the fucking insane asylum. So, there's a hiding spot in the back corner of the garage, kind of. It doesn't seem the safest, but it does technically exist. There's a couple of them. They're gambles, but they're there.
Hey. Come on. Hey.
It's just corners where it probably won't see you, but could still see you. Not your house. Alright, I should actually look at my thermometer instead of just walking around staring at the middle distance. Confused. Because I'm like, alive or whatever?
Oh. Connected to the floor panel.
Did I not grab? I thought I grabbed the lighter 3 times. I also don't know if this is real, so okay. Looks pretty much like a PNG dog. I heard something get thrown around here. But it's like 20 degrees, so I don't think it's there.
The room's behind me. I'm gonna go check down this one.
Enjoy the nightmarish basement. It's not the monkey's paw. Is it the spooky doll? It is the voodoo doll.
Voodoo.
Whose head is on backwards, or legs are on back. Something's wrong with him. Yeah, they hide him inside the cupboard here. So the few times we're actually looking around, like, pays off. It's this house.
Wouldn't mind more of that.
Yeah.
Gross stuff. Oh, wait, downstairs basement, second room.
Is that where it is? A hiding spot behind the cuck chair is still here.
Tools on the floor.
And to keep that on. 20. 20. 19.
Other one.
17. 19. Yep, demon hole. I'm gonna pop this flashlight right here, because fuck this place. I hate it here. You found the bone, you said?
I did.
Okay. I got the photo of the voodoo doll.
Hold on.
Alright.
Let's go with standing camera. Book and on flashlight.
Walkie. Hello.
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 Oh.
Take this, I'm gonna 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 take this. I have the 800 hands hack, I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna eat 17 Cheez-Its, I'm gonna take this.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna break into the hospital, I'm gonna fuck my wife, I'm gonna take this. Look, we need some bonding time, alright? It's been a difficult few weeks, is all I'm saying. I love how the flashlight does nothing to offset the fact that this basement is just an abyss of horror.
I saw that up with the flashlight. That didn't make it any... That made it worse.
Somehow that's not better.
Somehow that's worse.
Ooh. Okay. Hello? Are you there? Oh, he's doing spooky stuff.
An elderly and
I wasn't recording. I was busy taking a photo of your fucking EMF. Do it again. You're an elderly bee. I heard you. Now what else? Say something. Where are you? Ooh. Okay. Oh, and that. All right. Cool. I don't know if I got the laugh, but I got Spirit Box fucking twice. Let's look. Evidence. Oh, I don't got Spirit Box response. Cool. Shut up. There we go.
Got Spirit Box.
I know you think I'm funny. Do you want to do it again? Maybe an EMF 5?
It's taken away.
It's taken away. Speak to me, my beloved from beyond. Oh, to touch a ghost on their sensitive places. Oh, to make love with something. Oop.
Make the banshees.
Boom! I recorded a video of Ghost Riding. I could have got the sound for that, but whatever. I got photo of Ghost Riding. We have Ghost Riding. The $10 sound. Apparently I did get the sound of Ghost Riding and the video and the photo. You're welcome for $30. You may suck it.
$60 even.
Oh yeah, because it's doubled.
Yeah.
All right.
You're up by 2.
And Spirit Box. Hey, we're doing great.
Hey. I'm not dead yet, and I'm even outside. No, I'm not dead yet.
Having a good time with you. Do you wanna oh yeah, I should actually turn on my push talk. Hey, yeah, I'm having a pretty good time. Would you like to hear a good joke? I heard you laugh before, which is so charming. I want to hear it again. Well, I know you're a ghost, so your sense of humor is a little off, at least compared to the living.
Camera fell.
So I'm going to, alright. I'm gonna, oh. Okay, I'm sorry it took too long. I was gonna tell you a nice joke that ghosts like, but since I have all my sounds, fuck you.
The camera on the tripod fell.
Oh, there's a tripod one in there?
Yeah.
Didn't even...
Somewhere in
Nope! 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 Your turn! Nope!
Some dots. This seems like fun.
Nope. Well, if there is dots, good news, it's a Diogen. Just don't get cornered in the corner you're in.
Fucking basement. Yeah.
Nope. You know, I could tell it was sick of me, because that's the last thing he said before he came at me. Whatever. Walked through me, but apparently didn't collide for... I don't know what happened there. Whatever. We got 4 photos, and...
Dots.
Really?
Yeah.
Alright, we got a Diogen. That's my favorite one to milk. And also to get pictures and stuff up. I'm gonna get a crucifix, even though it's not that helpful here. I'm gonna get this. Incense doesn't do shit on this guy. I'm gonna get some Cheez-Its noisily into the mic just to bother Spritz for no reason besides I'm a bully. Bitch. I didn't say I was good at being one. Alright, we need motion sensor, don't we? Alright, bring down motion sensor. I only need to go off like 25 times. Me and my dome. Now that I know it's just a Diogen, I'm not as scared. Like, don't get me wrong, stuck in a hallway with the Diogen sucks. But...
what's Diogen?
Don't hide. Not the best house for it, but you can loop in the kitchen and living room, so... Boop. Wow, he's mad at me. Mist formed my face and shit.
Sense.
Here's salt down. Go crazy, homeboys. I'm putting down a crucifix because why not? Oh yeah, give me the motion sensor. Just put it out in the hallway. I need like 25 motion sensors.
I just realized.
Right here, it'll walk by here. So yeah, there it goes immediately. Cool, perfect. That'll help me out. We don't really need this in here, I guess. Gonna leave it like Pac-Man dot so we can see where the fucking stairs are here.
Hey, disturb salt.
Boink. There. Not face down. Boink. Yeah! Visible stairs.
We need another photo and another video. Then we have it.
See this extra thermometer? Not anymore, you don't. So put on the stairs is another tiny light. I like seeing.
And I love it.
Boop. There we... Oh, no. That's face down. There. Oh, no. It's just clipping into it. It's... Oh, it's that kind of thing. It's just a diagonal collision box that looks like stairs. They're invalid, but usually not quite that obvious for physics objects. That is where you use separate masks, you see, usually. Oh! Oh. I need to get this photo. Dang, I think I still need a photo.
We need a photo and we need a video.
Get a video of that and a photo of that. So if I bring down the other dots and put it in the hallway, that'd be a good... Oh, wait. Oh, it was right in front of you. I would recommend standing over here where you can get out. Again, it was sneaking up through this hallway. I was going to go at the other dots, put it out here, because it is out here enough the motion sensor is going off. So if I can get the dots in the hallway, we have a pretty good chance of getting that as a special, like, little... Also, the dots are clipping through the walls into the radiator upstairs, so that's fun.
That's good.
See them in the living room. That's a cool bonus. Or Cheez-Its, nom nom nom. Hmm. 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 Oh. Do you have the other dots?
Well, in here.
Oh. I'm stupid. I'll bring more salt, because I need a bunch of that. For my dailies. I'll make it that money.
Good video.
You bitch.
Go into the lights. Car's out.
I'm going.
How many leads do we have? 2?
Yeah. See it right up top.
Not in there. I'm looking for
Sam.
Record.
Gonna pop this down. Gonna pop this down. More salt. More salt. Gonna pop this down. Don't get video of the salt. Gonna pop this down.
Yeah.
I know. I would focus on the
While I'm on dots and I'm looking out for the crucifix case of burns.
right. I was hoping for the video of the oh whatever. I'm putting motion sensors to fill up that weekly task mostly. If you want me to move this so it's not in the way of you trying to get dots, I can do so.
No, I was going to say I was doing pretty good with that.
I can just put it right here. It's going up and down the fucking hallway.
Get dots in the room, but I moved them out here. I'm not getting any dots. I could just.
It might be responding to both of us. I would put both out here. I would, if you have on alternate walls like this, I would keep one in the room here. That way, because that's where it's doing the most shit. And then one in the hallway, because it is clearly going in the hallway sometimes. Maybe have them... Well, that's pretty good, actually. More or less synced up. Okay. There's something else we could do? Oh, shit. Seeing he's standing in this hallway isn't the safest thing. Getting a photo of it would be nice, but... Wanna show up on dots for me again? Wanna come talk to me? Strangle me? Okay. Where? Where? Where?
Ugh. No.
Bitch?
I got door moves. We just need a photo.
Bitch?
Video.
Bitch?
Okay. I got an incense, so if we get a full-on hunt, you tell me incense. I can fire it.
Bitch?
Once.
I need your photo.
Gotcha.
Is there another photo camera so we can tag team this? Do you got it?
Good,
Don't like this hallway. I'm thinking I should go get that other crucifix, put it out here somewhere just in case. Might have thrown it. Is that it over? No, that's a wrench. That's nothing like a camera, Sarah.
That's...
Did you get a photo?
Oh.
Fucking ass. Here, take this. I was gonna go get the other crucifix, because I can. Yes. I don't know what to do right now. Eating sideways and eating Cheez-Its. This is my special gift from God. Sprite Spritz didn't clip me getting the shit scared out of me. We do need to incense it. Shit. I mean, if we start a cursed hunt from upstairs, that's easier to deal with.
Yeah, we can always start poking at the door.
Mm-hmm. So for now, I'm inclined to put that.
Doesn't.
Just running. So looping it in the kitchen would be perfect. Or around the couch in here, that's a little easier to get stuck on that stupid table or something.
Mm-hmm.
Kitchen counter is just a square.
Oh, what?
What? Alright. Here's a backup crucifix. I'll go get the lights. Happy sunset, Diogen, making me think he's not my friend. Oops, my bad. There we go. Last maintained. Squiggly, tiny type squiggly. That's upside down. It's upside down.
Got knocked around.
What? Circuit details is right, but the actual details are upside down.
Haunted. That's how they found out.
The circuit breaker is haunted?
Yeah.
That's been the cursed object all along?
Ow!
What?
I fucking hate this.
You want me to take over Photo Beauty?
Yeah, because we only got one left, and I'd rather have you fuck it up than me fucking up a third goddamn.
That's fair.
It's downstairs. I'm gonna be upstairs.
And if you want to, we could just get a photo of it hunting.
I'm up for it. I got the incense.
Okay. Going crazy.
I don't have cameras.
Why did you do that?
Because I thought you were going downstairs.
No, go get it. Shit. I'm like super crazy now. I've been over here stabbing this voodoo doll, hoping to God it's not going to hurt me.
I'm back. Back camera.
There was one in there the whole time. Okay. I thought.
I
don't think its head is actually attached. That's really funny. It has some physics to it, but it's literally just if you're up or down. The lights are flickering downstairs.
If it's the heart, we're dead.
Okay, whoop. Oh yeah, it stuns it.
Watch yourself.
I'm gonna go in the kitchen. The kitchen is safer.
Up.
Mr. Diogen, ring around the rosy, Mr. Hi! Hey, I don't know how to break it to you. Like, I liked talking, but you're kind of, You're ugly! Bye!
So, did you get the photo?
I'm gonna kill you.
To be fair, I don't know if I did, but
You did.
Okay.
You did.
Yeah.
Hard not to with him.
I know, but it was just... You know, oh, that's the moment he turned invisible.
Oh, yeah, no, it fluxes. Yeah, but we're fine. We got it.
Okay.
Perfect run.
Gen, full marks, hit the button.
Yeah.
Sanity
And last thing to know is if we fail, I would just make this noise. Oh. Anyway, hit the button so I can...
Taken away.
Phasmophobia soundboard win. Jesus.
Welcome back.
Hello. I have more money than God. Who would like to touch me on my butthole? Owie, why'd you do that?
I did my nails more.
Oh, no. Oh, there's 4,200.
With my toenail.
Motion sensor did its job.
Keep it that. Good.
I had 25 going in, and I needed 50.
Yeah.
So a lot.
All I need to do is survive 22 more hunts.
93.
Oh, I need one more salt.
We're working on it.
No, yeah. One salt, and then I'll have everything. Is that guy?
Back to Willow Street. How much money do I got? Okay.
Yes.
27 grand feels good. I won't lie.
You've arrived. Check the equipment and get them.
Best in buying 100 of everything.
There have been new reports of a cursed object.
Like, by all means, set me up for the future, homie. I know when you reset, you lose your gear, but you know what you keep? Big bag of money.
Big.
I remember what that's from. Big bag of
You want to
money.
just settle now, or should we just give him a big bag of
I forgot.
big bag?
I forgot the thermometer. I never got the thermometer. I got to measure the temperatures of the homestead. What if a ghost just haunted the porch? It's sunset again.
Said, let there be light.
Oh, hey, the best hiding spot is here.
I never did look at our optionals.
I didn't either. I usually set up first. Music box.
14.
Right by the front door. I got it. I'm going to assume you did not see it there.
Did not.
Yeah, it's 5 degrees difference between here and the kitchen. So we're in the garage.
Yeah.
Unless it's somewhere else near the garage, and this is just our thing. I mean, I haven't found the bone yet, so you want to keep looking around. Go for it.
I didn't catch it. Let's do it.
Okay, I'll look around for bones and shit. I'll double check other rooms. I don't mind. For all we know, it's like a twin sitch or
Give it a
something.
free other gather just in case we get that thing. We grab more equipment and throw
Well, sometimes it means the ghost is nearby, but you're not in its room, too. It's rude like that. Hello? 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 Oh, that's a good hiding spot, too. Boxes! No one will find me. Boxes! Did not like those lights dimming out. Ooh! Dang. I like having these LED things that we got set up, but at the same time, you got them on fade in and out. Like, that's cute. Ah! Okay, we're good. I saw it. Oh, no, we're good. Oh, there's the bone. I'm with it. You know what? I think they should just have a random horse's hoof. Just once in a while, just a hoof, like a fucking horse head, like you're in The Godfather. Something weird. Just throw something weird at me, you know?
Different skeletons, you know?
Yeah. Or like just a severed hand or something. Just find some fingers in a pile.
Yeah. Or pick off of it. Murder weapon.
Harder things to buy on the storefront, I guess. We have artists now. Maybe eventually. Horror 2. Wait, no, it's just we added fingers.
Basement.
Yeah, I'm looking around the basement. Why? Why? Oh. That one of our side things. Yeah, I'm not seeing any temps besides the garage, so I think it's the garage for sure. a screwdriver, and I'll prove it's the garage by killing you there, and then it will definitely be haunted.
Yeah, garage is 6.
Oh yeah, that's it then.
Spare.
Spare. Spare. Get out of here, ghost. Get out of here, ghost. Get out of your house. It's not your house. Oh, the EMF rate. Boop, boop. Boop. Yep, 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 yep.
Anything that? Camera off tripod. Ah! It goes.
Oh, there's one. Click. EMF reading gotten.
Very nice.
Camera set up. If this is here, I'm ready to record ghost writing at any moment. Okay, I'll be on camera duty for a minute.
There's the tripod camera there, but the other camera's here.
Oh.
I mean,
Go get salt.
well, you can work the paramount for a bit.
Go get salt.
Get salt.
Go get salt. I refuse to miss if it's ghost writing. I miss it so often. Last time I got it 3 times. If there's dots, I'm gonna hit the dot. I'm gonna be a good girl. Uh-oh. Hello? EMF 5. I got door moved.
Picture moved down here.
Got door moved.
That door moved. Oh, no.
We had nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm putting this back. Alright, it's just that writing goes for about 2 seconds and we're done. If we sound record EMF 5, that's also a thing. 3.1, it's not freezing at this point in time. Hello? You just moved something. Oh, moved that. Where's the UV? No, where's the UV?
Oh, it's my hands.
Check the door.
Ow.
Both sides. Good try. Gotta check. Gotta check.
No, yeah. I didn't even click. Like, not the UV. I'm looking at the sand right there. Salt.
Oh, oh, oh.
Three lights.
Lack of salt touching is concerning. Centralize this a little more. All I've seen so far is ghost writing. Do we have a sound recorder on us yet?
I do not.
I will bring it in. Now, pee on everybody. Hee
Being
hee hoo hoo hee hee pee pee. Big pee pee. Oh, I have a DM. Is it Liz being home? Keep me posted.
Oh.
Cats. So excite. Definitely didn't just leave caps lock on. Nobody tell her otherwise. So sound recorder, firelight. That's a good choice. That's a good choice.
got the spirit box yet?
No, I was getting the sound recorder for that purpose. So far, it's a quiet motherfucker.
Anything all the time. Anything all of the time. Can you? Are you there? Are you listening? Wrong with you? Can't you say something? You do something? Can't you write something?
Yo, bitch, where you at?
Are you there? Are you there?
Whoa!
Say,
Hello? Hello?
Step. What do you want? Oh, it feels really good on the feet. Salt.
Not touching salt. We might just have a wraith situation.
You write something?
Oh yeah, we have EMF 5. EMF 5 and ghost writing. Nope, spirit shade or my shade would make some sense. Hold up. Give me a sec. J, Ghost, Shade. Is that who I think it is? Very shy. Suggests the Shade will stop all activity with people. Okay, so if you want... Oh, shit. Sound. I don't think I got it. No, I get this, though. Or not. Maybe no 5 for me. Dude. Okay, if you want Spirit Box, you gotta do it outside its room. Because it's a shade. Doing something over here. So grab a Spirit Box, try the kitchen. It's been doing stuff by the door anyway. So come over here. I'm gonna grab the firelight and move it with us a little bit. I keep getting the EMF5 to go off, but I'm not able to record it, and it's really pissing me off. There it goes. I think it just went through salt. No, that was you, I guess.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Are you there? Are you there? Where are you? Where are you? Can you say something? Say something. Can you do something? Do something. Is it safe? Safe?
Just threw stiff in there.
Is it dangerous? Dangerous? Should I leave? Should I leave? How did you die? How did you die? Are you young? Are you young? Are you old? Are you angry? Angry? Are you sad?
Are you a sexy bitch?
Are you sexy bitch? Do you want to dance with me? Sing with me? Dance the night fantastic. You sure this place is haunted?
Yes, we keep getting EMF5 and shit. It's a shade. It doesn't do stuff if we're in its room. Basically, go check your camera in the truck. We have EMF5 in... Oh, I thought we had ghost writing. I made that up. Wraith is still on the table, then. I could be totally wrong. It is avoiding the salt like a plague.
Or crucifix.
Okay. Did we get that?
Photo of it, too.
Alright.
A bad place to be if it is a little confusing.
Well, we are a little cuckoo nuts. I'm gonna pop
How
on
crazy be I?
40s. We're in the low to mids 40s. Repel with incense while it's chasing is one of them, though, if you want me to hold off on the meds.
Is it, Voodoo? No, that was last time.
That was last time. It might be this time, too. I don't know music box this time.
Oh,
I'm popping it. We need videos out the ass still.
We're down by 2 or 3.
Alright, I'm checking the camera.
Shit.
What?
It was long.
Oh. Doing an event in there? Not really doing anything unless it moved. Oh, it's coming for you. There was a hiding spot in the corner of the living room, but you're not getting it now. Oh, bye.
Bye.
Yeah, you're dead as hell.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I just popped meds too.
Anything?
Oh,
Yeah.
yep, there's your dead body.
Yes!
Thank you.
Hey, I got some.
Jeez. And hunting ghosts. That's 25.
I know.
Right, so it's definitely haunted.
It's definitely haunted. You get $5 for a dead body,
Yeah, you don't get much.
but it's a video of a dead body that's
It is a video of someone being strangled midair until their fucking neck snaps,
not
so...
even $10. We get
No.
$10 for a photo of a burnt crucifix,
Yeah.
but a video of somebody dying on camera while not being touched.
Look, it's what the organization is paying us, not what YouTube is paying us. Alright, the snuff film will make us... Oh, Liz is now in Phasmophobia.
Oh,
But that doesn't mean it's Liz. It could be Mason. I don't know. Am I getting pinged? Am I getting anything? I don't know. I wish I could WAS pan the camera. That'd be nice.
would be nice.
Okay, I'm gonna go on a limb and say it's probably not dots, because I ain't seen shit.
I've seen no dots.
It was very fast.
It was extremely fast. It was like, hey, that's gonna kill it.
It's not a Thay. It's not a Deogen. We can, well, those are both already ruled out with the EMF5. Raiju, Obake, Twins, Goryo. Did we lose and relight the fire multiple times?
No, the fire's still lit. It's on the doorways.
An interesting mess. Is any of the salt hit at all?
Not touch the salt at all. It lit the crucifix.
I'm gonna say
And-
Wraith. But Wraith would be dots is the problem. Unless it's changed rooms on me.
Not sure.
What a lovely situation. How am I half crazy? I'm just hanging out in the truck, you whore. How
Watch
nuts.
somebody die without being touched.
Look, man, I just like watching stuff.
I like snuff films.
I needed one more salt. This dude's like the no salt dude. That sucks for me.
Same boat. Don't get me wrong. Salt.
Alright. Whatever.
Who's the ghost that specifically doesn't?
Wraith. That's why I'm concerned about it not having dots. That's the issue. That's where I'm at. Like, huh. Uh-oh.
And,
Just gonna go ahead and pop this here. And
when you
put
go
one over
home
here. Yep. Negative.
Oh.
Oh, we have freezing.
Rates off the table. Jin Shade Oni twins. I don't know about
Jin can be pretty fast.
Jin is.
Let's
Especially
get-
if electricity's on.
There we
That
go.
was no, that was.
A Jin can. Freezing temps photo got.
Down 2 to go.
Okay, we need sound. We need one still. What? Oh, that's not the one I thought it was. That's the EMF reader. I'm like, what's the sound keep turning on when I hold the button? Alright, it's not a Wraith, and Shade is still on the table, though. Which does make a level of sense, because it was not cooperating. We were, nothing is Ghost Orbs, Spirit Box is Twins, and we've really tried. UV is Jin, Ghost Riding would be Shade.
More active while people are nearby. Dream there's 70 fast and will manifest. Oh no. I'm gonna shot. Shades are harder to find and won't hunt if there are people nearby. It came from another room when it hunted.
Yup.
Yeah.
Shade has been my leading theory for
But
a
that's
while.
Ghost Riding. We've had that book down. No, it hasn't.
It hasn't interacted with the book at all, though.
Yeah, it's not doing squat.
Well, it's roaming. It's not in its room.
I know, but like, it's done nothing. It
Yeah, no, it is strange. Don't get me wrong.
still could have spirit box. We don't know yet.
A lot of things. So I'm like, huh. Trying to set some things up that I can work with. Nice ass.
9
Okay.
active.
It's not doing anything I give a fuck about. Oh yeah, I was gonna do this shit. Where's the loose video camera?
On top of the, on the left by the. Thumb up. What's up there? Did it get thrown?
Probably.
Oh, here in the main front room hallway on the floor.
Just trying to pull your dead body aside to make sure it wasn't under that.
No, yeah, main front room by the UV.
Alright, you're using it to record.
And then I died
Yeah, you
because
do
it was
that.
in my hands.
Get this off the table, but it's not touching salt. Shit. This is such a weird ghost.
Seriously.
It's touched a lot of doors and crap.
It
Damn it.
was thrown a lot. Giving us in F5 readings real fast.
Yeah.
Grand. But
Like if Poltergeist was on the table, we'd be talking, but
sure.
I need to do some serious Tucci or something here.
You can do music box, but if
That
it's,
doesn't give me evidence.
you know,
Music, yeah, but it doesn't tell me what the ghost
no, I know,
is.
I'm just like, yeah.
That's my issue. I don't know what the ghost is. I'm not even after perfect right now. I'm just after doing the thing. Like, what are we dealing with here? It's kind of a saucy bitch. Sorry, I missed the sound ping. I am trying my bestest to figure shit out. I have dots up in the spare in the kitchen. I've got dots up in there. I've got both cameras working. And either one is finding... Oh, fuck me. I hate lights. I never leaves UV on it. That's what ticks me off. I'd love to. It's not even setting off the motion sensor. Like, shade feels viable. Because they're supposed to be harder to find. It has been 20 minutes, and we're not getting shit.
You need shade just because.
I'm thinking shade, and I want to get on with it. Like, this is boring.
You need to collect.
This is boring, and I need to pee, and Liz is waiting on us now. I'm
Hit the
like,
button.
yeah, I'm saying shade. Educated guess, shade.
All right. You ready?
Boom. I will pee.
Get in with my cup.
You said at my ready. I hit the
I
button.
know, but I thought I had time to get in. I'm like, it would take her 2 seconds. It took her 1.
Didn't even take that. I hit the button. I told you last night I have great twins.
Where?
That explains why I came from a weird spot, I guess. But what?
Like they weren't doing shit.
Whatever. I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Let me invite our home boss, Lizzie, invited to play. I'll be right back, everybody.
Hello? I'll go. One per shot.
Hi, I'm back.
Really?
Okay. Hi, I'm back. There's a bunch of poppers by my feet. Now that I've popped them.
Hi, I'm back. Bunch of poppers by my feet.
So,
Now that I've popped them.
oh boy. We've lost Spritzy. So, dead chat, dead chat.
God.
We've lost Spritz.
Who else is hiding there?
Oh no.
It's me and somebody.
Bye, Spritz.
Kicking. Right. Willow, Street. We're ready.
Kicking. Right.
I am getting to listen to myself through the game. That's fun. Start. All right. Key. Camera. Wrong camera. This camera. This. This. This.
Camera.
This.
Wrong camera. This camera. This.
Rain. Oh my god. That is some rain. That's like, it's a storm.
Thunder and lightning could make the power go out. Eyes on the power.
You talking spooky? It is not the music box. I do not think, if I remember where they are correctly, that it's tarot cards. What do we got? I was pulling the push door. I'm very smart. Looked like the cat was eating brains. I was very confused. The fuse box in there again, or is it downstairs?
Downstairs.
Oh. Oh, hey, that's easy. Spine. Spine.
Bow. Located.
Spine. Someone is spineless around here. And we have no monkey's paw.
On.
Can't see shit in Detroit. There we go. Glitchy, I'm sorry. Hiding spot in the kids' room. No voodoo doll.
Ritual. Circle.
Oh Jesus. Okay, I wasn't even paying attention. I wasn't even paying attention to my stinking thermo. I was just wandering around like a dumbass. Just was looking for stuff. Yeah, everything's cold. Everything is cold. Oh, the basement's extra cold?
10s and 11s in the basement. But everywhere.
What kind of house wouldn't have a light here? There's nothing. There's not even a spot for one. How do you get in your own basement without dying? It's dark as shit. You get a photo of the summoning thing?
I did.
Okay, cool. Warming up everywhere I'm looking. Is it in our favorite room again? No. Alrighty. Where the fuck are you? I should really move my AutoCAD so people can see what the hell I'm doing. Cause it looks like I'm carrying myself like a pet hamster. Oh, it's in the front room. Front room. Straight up, 4 degrees, easy.
I'm not sure why.
Huh? What?
I'm genuinely not sure if your voice is coming through.
My voice comes through when I hold down the button, but I'm also talking for the stream's sake a lot.
I know, but
And I tried to minimize how much I talk in game because that tends to piss off the ghost. Zachary. So. Sorry, sometimes I just respond to things with my dad's racist joke. I just take the race out of it and the Zachary disease. That was well timed. No ghost orbs. Upside of that.
camera angle ever.
Womp. I'm gonna put this right on the back of the couch. Couch book. Couch book. Everybody read.
Fix
Couch
the camera by the fireplace, please. That's so terrible. Just,
Yeah, I don't know why you did that.
because it gets itself.
Alright. Well, the other one has a great view, so.
Yeah, I know.
That. There. Oh, it's not doing it again. Oh. It was stuck in the wall, just going crazy. I just thought, you know, hey, that's fun. You know what? Here, let's do this candid camera. No one will notice.
I'm ghostwriting.
We got ghostwrite. Nice. I was busy fucking with the camera instead of taking photos of things or videos of things. Yay. If you want to swap for the better camera, I won't stop you. You'll get slightly more dollars from things. $1 extra. I know you're already like salivating over it, but still. I got a dots thing set up. I'll set another one up over here. We need salt and sound. Yeah. Do 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 do. Boop boop boop. Get the other dots thing.
Oh,
Put the dot over here, closer to the ground. Whenever you show up. F.
on the ground
F?
or to the ground.
Over here, like right here against the wall. Then grab a camera and get to work. I've set up salt. No, I have set up salt. So start recording salt, and I will start doing spirit box, and somewhere in there we'll get something to happen. See you later.
Act of hate.
Beer box.
All right, do that again, because I wasn't even talking. I was just here. Did you say out of hate?
You don't need to talk.
Why wasn't I recording? I'm holding the button. One more time, please. EMF's going off. We want a photo of that. Oh, and it walked through one salt. And it opened the door. We got lots of UV chances, is what I'm saying. Hey.
When a young assailant.
Thank you. And it just walked through this. Any UV? Are you busy trying to get video?
I have got no BB yet. BB yet.
We have freezing. Perfect. Click. Freezing temps, yes. Ghost writing, yes. Spirit box, yes. It is a Moroi.
Oh, no.
I guess I don't need this. Alright.
You're crazy. It's all about salt.
Cool.
You
So,
drop the camera and gets the fire.
yeah.
Oh,
Also, she's in the truck, I think, so you don't have to be full camera, dude. As long as stuff's in line of sight for her. We're bad at that.
well, you're at
When a
29.
young assailant. When a young assailant.
I'm at 29.
Yeah. I'm 50.
Pills. Alright, now I'll be closer for 50. Hi, Lizzie. What are you doing?
Get this orgy started.
Nobody sure, but I'm gonna have some fun. It's not just masturbation, it's an orgy for one. It's me and myself, and I'm tugging on my plums. Oh. It's a fucking celebration, it's an orgy for one. Okay, we don't need it to get more salt, so I'm going to place salt for escape routes now. F. F. Boys, chill. F. Is this room solid? No. Closing that door, because that's a not helpful door. This one does have a place to... Cool. That counts as light switched, I guess. Light switch, light flickering, disturbed salt. Good start. You just got spirit form. She might have caught that. She did get that. That's also a good sound.
This is rough. Go
Good.
man.
Good job. Oh, it blew out my thing in my hands.
This got it.
Nice. Fire extinguished, mist form, videos are done. So we need sounds.
I'll close the fire.
We also need a photo of the ghost and to cleanse the area around it with incense. So we'd have to delete a photo and get a ghost photo, but we have a summoning circle. That's the worst case. Okay. Go ahead and turn on the light. There's no reason to have it off. It's just going to make us crazy. Like, literally no reason to have it off.
EMF readings are worst one.
Oh, okay, then kill that. Pass on to her. It's easy to get another one. How's that? EMF. We need a photo of the ghost for one of our things.
Let's
Oh.
delete this photo and get one of the ghost.
Yay, it thinks I'm funny. Alright, we need incense near the ghost. Guess what I'm carrying? That's right, not incense. I thought I had it. Alright, well, we got work to do. We might have to make Liz do it. She is the sanest. Hi, Liz. How are you doing with your almost enough sanity? I have a horrible job for you. Does it interest you? Yes. Okay. You know the summoning circle in the basement? Those cool sanity pills over there and that lighter? These are all related. These are all related. You see, it takes at least 80 sanity. Ominous. 80 sanity to light the summoning circle. And we need a photo of the ghost. So here's what I can do for you. Are you ready for this information? Step 1, take this camera. Step 2, take your medication. I'm going to go ahead and take the shitty one. Oh. Okay. Step 3, grab one of these incenses. This one will freeze the ghost even. I will show you where to hide. Are you there? Are you freaking out? I can probably do it, I guess. All right.
Your mic's off.
My mic's off?
Must be. I told you that a bit ago.
I'm holding the thing.
He's holding the thing, but something's up. Your voice isn't coming.
How about now?
I can't hear a thing you're saying.
Oh, fuck me.
Working on it.
Okay, whatever. I'll do it. I'll. That might be why Spirit Box is shit. How about now? Can you hear this? Anything you want to do that?
Yeah, but you're not saying anything. You're pressing the button. Your mic's not picking you up.
Awesome. Having issues. It's working.
Technical issues, though it does explain a bit.
Is it working for the stream? Yes, mic is working for the stream. Is this audio microphone? Steam streaming mic? Fuck you. I don't even know what that is. It keeps dicking me over. Hey, can you hear me now? Did that do anything?
Press B.
I might not have committed. Options. Apply. Yeah, hello?
Hello?
There we go. A bunch of...
Now.
So I figured this out. My little person in the corner does this too. Sometimes it just switches to something called the Steam streaming microphone. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. And I don't know what device it's looking at. But things keep trying to use it, and it keeps breaking everything. So that's great. Cool. I am crazy. So here's what's going to happen with me. It's definitely in that room doing shit. Hey, Chris. You see this sound sensor, motion sensor situation over here? I am going to be in that room with an incense. I'm going to need you to tell me when it is in that fucking room, or at least when it's hit the motion sensor. I am going to fucking stock up on sanity, and I'm going to do the summoning circle, since I just ate shit trying to communicate earlier.
Well, I wish you well. I'm going to look at this and say things. It's green. It's red.
That's fine. That just needs to flash when it's there. Okay. I'm looking right at it, too. Where you at, you spooky bitch?
You.
What?
Heard you.
Oh, yeah, you have a sound sensor. That's kind of fun. Oh, now.
There you go.
Did that trigger the cleanse area near Ghost?
Yes.
Good. One down. How's my sanity?
4.
Good. Double checking my intended hiding route.
Go big, go home.
All the way back fucking there. Okay. Double checking my other options just to be safe. Is there one? How's my sanity now?
87.
Okay.
83.
That is my one hiding spot. Alright, gotta make it count. This is it. All or nothing. I'm going. This may or may not work. I might go crazy and die. Wish me luck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ghost photo. Do I need to repel it with incense?
You are good. You have everything.
Golden. Golden, 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 golden. Hee hee hoo. I am crazy. Golden, golden, golden. I am doing everything I can. What's up? Oh, Milo's under me. Just a second, bud. I did it. I'm the best. I didn't have to use the other incense. Alright. I think that's everything. I am nice and cray-cray. Yep. Looking good. I think we're...
Mark Moroni.
Moroi. Alright. Cool. Golden. I'm hitting the button. Bam. 1. Where's my cat? What's he doing? Cat.
Playing there, and that one's laying or walking over there.
Fussy cat. I lost track. I heard you and then you left me.
Welcome back. I've got
Fussy
some
baby.
for you.
Alright, there's 3 more. Perfect investigation bonus. Boom. Rewards. Boom. Hey, Liz, I hope you like the money of the birthday shit.
Hell yeah.
Got me 3,500. 94, homies. Alright, where's the cat? What's it want? I heard it meow. Why is it meow? I'm gonna switch my sweater anyway. This is getting kind of Now, are you thirsty? Are you asking for a drink? Do you need drink? Is this a cat request for drink? Drink, cat? Oh, do you want to go to bed? Yeah, you want to go to bed? Don't know. Put you in bed for now. I'll put you in bed for now. The Oreos up in that thing, Chris?
Yep. Take them.
Steal one. I even steal two.
Take all that middle slot.
Then I'm going to pee on it. But not the Oreos. That would be weird.
Milk, please. Not lemonade.
You know? Well, maybe.
Oreos and lemonade.
Maybe. For the right person, not for me. It's like, it's chocolate and fruit, fine, and cream. Yeah, that's basically just chocolate covered frozen fruit.
Anything milk plus anything lemon with sour milk.
I don't know. I don't eat lemon.
Well, then you're a bad person.
Okay, I'm Satan. I don't eat lemon. I don't give a shit.
Satan. Just a bad person.
Fine, I'm evil, Sarah.
Oh.
Okay, that's a lot of noise. Are we doing more Willow Street? How much more do I need? How am I doing?
Like 9 more.
I don't want 9 more. I have 7 out of 12. I need 5. I need 5 more.
You just need objectives. So.
My frame rate randomly stutters down to ass. What is going on with that? Hey, computer, why is my frame rate suddenly ass? What are you doing? Hey, computer, let's look at what you're doing. Computer.
Bark.
What?
Bark. Bark.
Bark? Oh, dog. I don't know what my computer's suddenly doing it's so mad about. Mystery. How's the heat? Most ventilated it's been in its life. Okay. Thanks. Ready when you are, big boy.
First one to die gets a golden egg.
Actually, I have 3 viewers. I'm assuming Liz is one of them and I'm one. I guess I don't have enough to do the prediction thing and have be fun. Oh well. Eventually I'll have a successful Phasmo stream and I'll get everyone in here betting on who's going to die first. Though tonight we've been doing pretty well, actually. All things considered. What?
Sunset.
I haven't set anything. It's just doing that. Oh, hi, baby. Hi, Cloud. I guess technically if it's those two, we could technically do who's going to die bets. Fuck it. Should I do the prediction?
Do it. Do it.
All right. All right. All right.
Yeah.
I think I can just reuse this one. Who will die next? Yep. Yep. You got 2 minutes to decide who will die next. Place your bets.
Nothing, man. Babe.
Yeah, but you don't have your account set up, so ha 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 ha. You're not a bad person, you just have a complicated email situation underway. Are you in the basement already? Alright.
Power's on.
Cool beans.
Beans. Beans.
Cool beans, cool beans. Well, there's one bet on LM. Someone knows this reputation of yours. My favorite thing about these is it is always you that dies first until the second I put up the thing, and then it actually does become kind of weird. Oh, monkey paw. Monkey paw. Apparently you can hear you when your microphone is off. Careful with that bug.
Basement's clear, which is a pro con, I suppose.
It's not a bone.
Did we ever find the bone?
I don't know. I haven't found a bone. 19, 17. You know, Chris, I don't want to discourage you, but the faith in the room and your ability to live is not proving high. There's 120 seashells put on you dying before anyone else.
Garage.
Oh, yeah, garage. Not necessarily this run either. That's just who is going to die next. So, alright, some light flickery crap. Here is our visage. And here's a bonus camera and media. Yeah, we got the bone. Let's got the bone. We got the monkey paw. We're golden.
So good. I was just getting the car key.
You're the car key. Oh, and I've been streaming for 2 hours, so guess what I just got? That's right, the Twitch drop for the animated thing. Ha ha hee hee hoo hoo, my wiener is so big. I'll deal with that in a minute. Actually, if I do it now, I think I might be able to show it when we get there. That could be fun. That could be fun for people.
Go crazy. Let's see it. Already gotten.
Honey, I always go crazy. Boom, 5th anniversary foil badge is mine. They didn't even spell it right. It doesn't have the E at the end of badge. It's the badge. It's the badge.
The badge.
The badge.
It's Fred. Ooh, the badge.
Wow, I reposted the thing of C blowing obsidian, and that's getting a lot of attention. Mind you, that is probably the best scam I've done. That is an animated blowjob. Fucking, I gave it an extra hour because I'm like, I believe in this. This is coming out great. So, I should leave my chat up so I can see it. We're out playing games with the LM goes. Yeah. Yeah. But once I put up the thing, it suddenly changes, and we'll get like Liz being the bravest she's ever been in her life, or just someone dies. I will find some creative ways to drop dead.
I wish I had an apple.
Or Crystal sabotage everyone else. That is an option, yes. Wish I had an apple. The ghost rips out your throat and gives you the Adam's apple.
I wish I could see the ghost right now.
I will kill you. 4 degrees. All right.
It was a ghost for everyone.
So, there were no votes for not Chris dying, which is funny because they almost are always unanimous, and it's great. But to be fair, it does make it slightly uninteresting. You never know. You really don't. Sometimes you think you know, and then you're surprised, and that's great.
Being truck bitch for the rest of the game.
Yeah, sometimes you will just be truck bitch. That is true. Sometimes, according to my stats, I am frequently truck bitch, and I didn't realize. Granted, I also will frequently walk away from the game for like 5 minutes with record on the camera now. It's like, do something. I need to pee.
How did you die?
Oh,
Say something.
You want to hurt us?
Can you write something in this
I'm
book?
going to put this down.
Aside.
Elderly victim.
I got that. All right. And we have EMF 5 and Spirit Box. Ding, ding.
An elderly victim.
EMF 5, Spirit Box. Turn this off, please. Make sure the Spirit Box is off if we're done with it.
Yeah,
All right.
turn
It's
it off.
3 degrees.
I am putting salt.
He's on the floor.
I'm recording salt. Step in my salt, bitch. Oh, we can turn the lights back on. We're done fucking Spirit Box. Yeah. Step in my salt, bitch. I think Kate wants to watch me draw here. I'm like, you know what? I probably should. What time is it now? 7:30. I don't know. See if I get this daily done. We'll go from there. So far, it's not stepping in the salt. What a sussy baka. Is anyone in the truck right now? Okay. Put this down. I am not recording right now. No one is video recording at this exact point in time. There is no sounds nearby. I'm gonna hop over truck side for a sec.
Did a scan, and no other place has freezing temps. I don't know if it's twins, but that's good evidence.
And it was really acting up when we were together in there. So it might be just it reacts when people are not alone. In which case I should... Okay, someone else is on camera. I don't need to be doing that. I can put more salt down. I can grab a thingy. Check my sanity. We're fine for now. Cleanse the ghost area with incense. Okay. Hee-hee-hoo-hoo. I can do that. I can scout hiding places while I'm at it. I like living. Hiding place, scout, looking about. We've got the one in the living room. Watch out. That's a good one. Do we think the ghost is in here right now? I'm going to turn this back on for a minute so I can sense EMF. Give us a sign, you filthy slut. Spirit Wraith of the Twins. It is not touching the salt, so you know what my first guest is. Actively avoiding the salt. Did I bring more salt? I did bring more salt. I'm going to be evil. You have no escapes that are not covered in salt, you spooky bitch. I've done this because I hate you specifically. Yeah, I can do that too. What do you think of that? That's right. I can touch your truck nuts or whatever. Is this technically a hiding spot? I don't even know. I mean, kind of, but if it comes back to a couple spots, it will see you. And we're getting a complete avoidance of all salt. I have put salt... Wait. Yep, it's not touching any of my salts. Good sign on the Wraith situation. It's not talking to me. I don't think it's going to, because I think it responds to people in a group. But by myself, I think a lot of dick all is going to happen. Do we have a motion sensor in here yet? You've got it? Alright. Lizzie, we might need to all be in the same room for anything to happen with this thing. Spirit Wraith and Twins. Alright. Alright, motion sensor is here. Is it still cold in here?
It says 8.9.
That's...
Oh,
It might have moved. Look around a bit.
it was 3 in here.
Yeah, it's going up. It might have moved.
Well, that'd be rude.
It does that.
20.
Alright. Where's the other thermo? I'm going down. Basement, fuck us. 5 degrees down here now. Start transferring shit. I need to get another sound clip, and I'm trying to get it to know that it's in there.
Bullshit.
Yeah, it sucks. I hate it down there. I need to cleanse the area near it with incense, so I am trying to set up to do that. The stairway is a murder pit. This is the place people go to die. Alright. Talk to me, guys. Let's go. Let's do something. I need one more sound. Oh, they just do that.
Is that the motion sensor going off? Or?
Yeah, it was the sensor going off. Fuck! I'm good. I'm stable. That didn't count. Ugh. Ugh! What happens if nobody dies? Do I just cancel it and refund everybody? I mean, we're doing at least one more run after this, because I'm trying to get the daily done, but... Oh, What do we got? What do we got? What do we do? I mean, I got more incense. We got the shitty incense. We've got the go crazy is one of our goals. Dang it. Okay. More salt downstairs as a test. More incense as a test. Motion sensor is down there. I still need a sound because there is no love in this world. MF5, no videos. I'm not even going for perfect at that point. We have 0 videos. Anyone else feeling very proud of themselves right now? Oh.
I'm feeling something about myself.
Satan told me to get out, and that's sounds. Sounds are done. Or salt, just in case. That's all we got. Wraith is still my front runner, I won't lie. Come on, set up the stupid... Do it.
Dots.
If that didn't count, I'm gonna scream. I hit the button with it on me. It is, in fact, a wraith. We've got dots. Got room for 2 more photos, too, so we can get a photo of dots.
Okay.
Won't hit salt. Actively avoids salt. Which, pro con, I put salt in every doorway, so we'll see how it feels about that shit. Photo camera. Sound sensor in the middle of the hallway, because I'm like that. What else could I bring down that actually does something? We need a fire... Photos, bone, monkey paw, EMF is all we rarely have. We won't get UV, we won't get ghost writing. We could get a burning crucify. You can, I think, technically get a photo of mist form. It's just kind of a bitch.
Hey, I want to see the ghost with the...
Yes, we can if we hate ourselves. I would like to try and get dots first, but I appreciate what you're going for. I think that crucifix just went through the floor. Oh no, it's still in my hand, thank God. Door move, motion sense, dot goes, great. Trying to get this thing to show up. Do we have both dots down here? Where's it? Appreciate that, but I'm gonna go for this. Come to me. Let me get your picture, stinky evil. Show me. Show me. For the love of God. Boom. Like that. This is one of our things that we all need to go crazy as shit, too. Need 2 more I'm tempted to just call it. This is really taking forever. Should we just call it? We know it is a wraith. It is taking a very long time to do anything of interest. And we still gotta do another round for that dang daily I've got. I haven't even looked at Liz's dailies. Oh, no. Like, this is boring. Been a lot of boring ghosts lately.
Seriously, I'm up for it. Ah! Rather take the win.
I'll set on stinking insanity mode or something. Like, give me something. Try to kill me. Let's go. Let's have some fun.
Like, I can grab the monkey spawn and just start calling off wishes.
I mean, I need 3 more things. We're not getting below 25. We are not collectively crazy enough. So, that's probably not happening. Hi, welcome to Boredom Town. We're debating just leaving. Because this is going really slow, and we're 17 minutes into the match, and it's just not going anywhere. That's 2 of the 3 I need for my... Wait. Yep, I need 3 more. Whatever. We could get one if we all go crazy. We're like all above half. I'm calling it. It's a Wraith. We know it's a Wraith. This is boring. I don't want to be boring. What are you doing down there? Oh, alright, I'm just going to leave Chris then.
Just hit the button. I'm waiting to record anything that goes off and just fuck.
It's a Wraith. I hit the button. We're going. Oh.
Hey,
I can't hit the button unless he's here. Yeah, well, let me leave you. That's not funny.
wow.
Oh,
I want to be an abusive asshole.
I wanted to be abused by an asshole.
He may not be the one who died this round, but he will be the one who is left behind.
Went out of my way to put the head thingy on, too.
I know.
I was like, that much more electricity. Make me that much more crazy faster.
No, like, just because I have a cucumber doesn't mean you're getting cucumber.
Lucky. Good, cute. You're sharing this carrot.
Oh, watermelon.
Oh, it's a raid. Oh.
I've got some jobs ready for you.
Yeah, perfect game. We got like 1,000 extra bucks out of that at the same time. I'm like, that's not worth the wait. Like, we could just do this again and make it. Alright, the bet has stayed. Piggy is still the one who is voted on unanimously to be the next to die.
If the shoe fits.
I need 3 more things, and I get my daily done. Wee.
3 more objectives.
Yep, 3 more objectives.
Well, I hope they won't suck. When you're ready, I'm ready.
I'm waiting on Liz. Waiting on Lizzie. Alright. Photo of the ghost, sound recorder, paramic. Okay.
Starting the investigation.
Freaking paramic, man.
I got it.
I just hate it. It's useful, but not when it wants me to find a sound. It's so picky about what counts and whether or not it registers. And I was like, alright, screw you. Oh, that's you. I was like, is my fucking light flickering? Demon, leave.
You're not even in the house. We gotta go.
I'm like, that's Satan. We're out of here. We're either out of here or we're very interested. You got a lot to do. Nothing in the bathroom. Not a music box, not a monkey's
mirror.
box. Mirror? I don't even know where a mirror is in this house.
Mirrors in there. Yeah, mirror.
Garage?
Yeah. Almost here.
Oh, wow, that's really obvious, actually. Alright, did we get a photo?
She did.
Cool, we just need the bone, I think, still. Trying to find the room before resorting to mirror, but just don't we have the option.
What's your average temps?
I'm getting about 15 at this point.
Front room. 9.
Alright, it's dark as hell out here. Good luck finding that bone. I'm gonna look around for things to bring in from the truck. There I said,
I've already located the boat.
Nice. Kiss yourself. Who's gonna die? Who's gonna die? Will it be the piggy? No one knows. On.
The remote. Emote. Emote.
Alright. What's everyone else doing? Oh, I forgot to look at my new badge thingy. I might have to relog in. I don't actually know. This. I am so on it, dudes. I think Who Dies is fun, but also might require us to do a Hail Mary run where things are just horrible. Because we are getting kind of good at this.
Almost not bad.
It's almost as if we've played... We don't talk about how many hours of this at this point?
At least 3.
Yes, Chris. At least 3. You are technically correct.
The best kind of correct.
Book is next to Crucifix. EMF Reader is next to Book. Never mind, it won't let me do that.
Oh.
What?
Done.
What?
Hey,
Oh.
it's gone. I'm on the parabolic. Oh, but it counted.
And that's all it really needs.
Fucking done. We
Cool.
got our parabolic.
Do you want to be camera person for a minute while we do other shit? I got Book. I'm gonna get Salt. Is there UV in there? No. Okay, I know what my next pile is. Sound. Salt. Oof. Delicious. Watch that Book for a sec. Let me see what I can do. Anything fun happening with you?
An elderly and
Got spirit box.
Oh, and Dots.
And dots.
Yeah.
Hello.
Dots box. Cool.
an attack.
I need to actually record that,
An
man.
attack, you say?
Attacking who?
You wanna hurt us?
Anybody got fire? Go.
Are you friendly?
Hey, Liz.
How did you die?
Oh, well, I got that.
It's all.
Elderly individual.
I don't know which of those counted. Groaning counted. Okay, I need you to talk while I'm not recording you screeching in my ear. I also need a photo of that. Hey, Liz, how about you take a sound recorder since you're doing Spirit Box and try recording the Spirit Box? I need to get a photo of the dots, and I don't see a camera. It is very focused on me, it seems like. Okay. It's aggressive. I would like to... Did we get it?
Okay.
You just gotta hold the button down while you're asking
Say that again,
questions.
Mr. Ghost.
An attack.
Are you friendly?
Getting attacked has
Are you just holding the button?
Talk. Please talk. I was holding the button, but it didn't do it.
How about now?
taken away.
Like, it's going off left and right. You want me to try?
Elderly
Friendly.
Here, give it back. I'll get it. Oh, never mind. We got it. Okay.
There we go. I think
Cool.
it got it. I think it went. Okay.
Now, I need it to actually
Hurt.
do something I can check for UV with. It would be golden. It's gone through Ray Salt. We didn't see footprints, did we?
Right there.
We got video of dot.
Shit.
What?
It went through more salt, but I duplicated that.
That's fine. I already marked it. Check for UV. Oh, through the book. Blew up the fire.
Fire.
A photo of this. Boom.
It's a duplicate.
Oh, shit. Eagle in the sky, oh. Be careful with these now. Evidence. We are down 1. Wraith, Phantom, Yokai. It's not a Wraith. We know that. Means it's not EMF 5. Use Phantom, Ghost Riding is Degen, Freezing Temps is nothing. Ghost Orbs, no sign of that, right? No fingerprints on that? Okay. I'm seeing no orbs. UV or Ghost Riding? Ghost Riding seems off the table.
Riding was bro.
Yeah. That leaves UV unless orbs are gonna pop. UV would be Phantom. We can't make us super crazy. Pop, whore! Definitely still in here. It's fucking 2 degrees. Where is it? Oh. Oh, damn. There goes my lights. Oh. It's not dotsing up anymore. I'm wondering if it responds to everybody and we just waltzed out.
As
As soon as I left?
no. I don't know. I was standing here and it went like this.
I threw a camera up somewhere. Check some evidence. Gentle here. Your sanity's really low and we're both at 50. Huh?
Crucifix just burned.
Okay, did you get anything of that? What do we got? Light exploded. Ghost orbs. We got ghost orbs.
Hey.
We have ghost orbs. Okay, so if it's ghost orbs, we know what it is. That's a yokai. We're done there. Okay. We need photos. I would love to get that dots before we go completely crazy, but that would also count as a photo of the ghost. And I am trying to figure out if it responds to alone or everyone. So you saw dots as soon as I left.
You stepped and the dogs walked in front of me, but they're just very rare. I don't. Oh, there's dogs right now.
I'm thinking.
I had a goddamn camera.
There's one here somewhere.
One on the floor in here, but I didn't have. Loves the fucking TV. I have the camera.
You're fine. I'm just putting some shit. I'm doing what I can. This will reduce your sanity drain rate a little bit at least. So you can get a photo of dots. We'll go from there. Try pissing it off and getting that. One for me, one for you. Did you finally grab a lighter, or are you still lighterless? Okay. I'm bringing you a present. Don't lose it. There. Ah, shit. Damn it. Alright, perfect game's out. We're done. Fuck.
What?
You missed. You gotta try now. I don't know. It just walked by again.
Oh! No, fuck me. I'm done.
Just another round.
Don't give a shit. Tired of missing on photos.
works.
Alright. Alright.
What?
You get a photo camera.
I have a photo camera.
I'll use it.
It's not a monkey's paw. Stay out of the house. Get out of the house. Get out of the house. You out of the house?
I'm out.
Glad I took my medicine. Glad I took my medicine. Glad I took my... Uh-oh.
Crucifix.
What?
Crucifix burn.
That should not be a cruise. That should be a cursed hunt immediately, for sure.
Oh, crucifix caught fire.
Real? He did the mirror. I did the mirror.
And your sanity's at 0.
Homie! I did the mirror!
Hey! Near perfect. If only I hadn't fucked us over.
I did the mirror.
Come here.
Okay, we know it's a yokai. We're done, right?
Flip it.
Cool. There's one caveat. Nice head.
Welcome back. I've prepared some jobs for you.
So here's the deal. We have a standing prediction to see if Chris is the next person who dies, and no one has died. So I have two options. I can either cancel that and refund everybody, or I can put us on a stupid difficulty and see what fucking happens.
Roll the bones.
Well, one of those certainly sounds more fun than the other.
Okay. Fine, here we go. Professional. Now here's the rule I'm no one can pussy out and hide in the truck. Ghost will hide if none of us
Man.
if we get this and none of us die, I'm calling it a cancel and a huge victory for us. How's that? Ghosts will hide 2 types of evidence. There is no cursed possession. Good luck, asshole. Also, if it starts a hunt and gets somebody, it will renew its hunt and go for the next person instantly.
Professional.
No. Insanity.
It's on Tanglewood. I've played that before.
Yeah, we're doing Tanglewood, but we only get 1 evidence. We get 1 evidence, and then we're just working out
Tanglewood.
how it works.
Smashy, smashy.
Good luck, assholes. We're in hell now. Nobody leaves until we get it, or someone's dead. And we probably won't get it. Hail Mary!
Oh, and it's snowing.
Yeah, we're gonna have a great time. Alright. Mirror? Damn. Tarot cards? No. Monkey's paw? Nada. Not that. Wow. Okay. Oh, and the garage is open.
I thought it was no curse possession.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
There is no cursed possession.
Is there at least a bone?
There's always a bone.
Yeah, dude.
There's always a bone. It's just basic. You need the bone for perfect investigation. Good luck getting the rest, but you need the bone. Oh, here's the bone. Bone's over here. I don't have a camera.
Neither do
Oh.
I know. Usually I do.
Bone is in kitchen for the camera lady. I do not have camera for some reason. I didn't see any in the truck. I thought you each grabbed one, and then there wasn't one. It's in the dining room. Ghost is in dining room. 2 degree. 2 degree. 2 degree. 2 degrees. This is dark. Fuck that. Click. Oh, we actually have quite a few hiding spots, more than I thought we would. Music box. Oh yeah, because there's not one. Jeez, I can't get that through my head. I cannot get that through my head. Alright. What do we got set up in there? Something. Can I tell you or not? Just what's in your hand? No. F. 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 Oh, I'm full. I'm trying to put the dots up. 'Cause I'm a fool! Still carrying it. Ding dong. Sluts, let's go. It's to make a decision about how I'm gonna move my mission. Double dots. Everyone loves them dots. Go. On the table. Yeah. 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 This is gonna suck so much. Oh, if we get 2 evidence, though, we know it's a mimic. We got that going for us. That's the only thing we get going for us. Trying to figure out what we do and don't have already. What's our missions? That's area near ghost. Set ghost presence with motion sensor. Capture 2. Okay. So I can grab this one. It kind of sucks, and we'll use that. Here we go.
Fire.
Fire. Burning the house down is one solution.
Burning down the house. Get out of here, ghost. House.
Okay, did we set up a motion sensor, or do we just have like limited equipment for some reason? Well, I thought we had 2. There's only 1 in the truck. It seems like there's a limit of several things in the truck. Want to talk to me? Give me a sign. Do something. Still in here. 1.6, 2.4. Are you friendly? Are you the devil? Okay, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. But for the sake of argument, how about you do something else? Talk to me? Want to touch me? Want to stroke me? Oh, wow. EMF 4. EMF 5 is our evidence.
Oh, that wears it down.
Button. Evidence is EMF 5. Spirit Wraith. Oh, shit. A lot of sounds.
Anybody have fire for the lamp?
Me. Oh, what do you mean it didn't count? Fuck you. I was trying to record that. Are we getting any video or anything while we're at it?
Gotta throw an object.
Did Did that count for cleansing the area?
Yes.
Hey, we got all 3 bonus objectives.
Fuck yeah. Spirit Wraith, Jin Shade, Twins. I kind of believe that. It's acting up in both those rooms a lot. Aiju, Obake, Myling. God, those are not easy. Myling is talkative, and it is making a lot of noise. Oh, where did I put my sound recorder? I already did this?
We go do a scan of other temps. Just because.
Where's my sound recorder going? Does someone have it? Oh, shit.
Not me.
Shit. Oh, here it is. Alright, you've been very talkative. You want to give me one more thing? I got laughing. I got reading. I could get... It's gonna be hard to do this. Not gonna lie. Okay, let's try this. Oops, I turned the light off. Is that gonna make you more active? It immediately started doing shit again. Like crazy shit. Okay. In that case, I'm gonna head out to the truck real quick and grab something. That's all I've got. We're having us a think here. Having us a think. We're on insanity. We can only test so many things. I'm testing... Wait, my link. Island is quiet when hunting. That's not the one I care about right now. Doesn't mean I want to be in there. Sound sensor's already gone. I'll pop this. Grab that. Grab the salt.
Well, if we have EMF 5, that's all we're going to get.
I know that's all we're going to get. But we're looking at tertiary evidence. That's how we narrow it down. We get one piece of primary evidence. We have to figure out what the ghost is from there. What?
Got a good video.
Oh, cool.
Shadow Ghost.
I'm putting more salt down. It's not touching the salt.
Are you friendly?
Burning crucifix on my nice list of shit.
Crucifix?
Oh, shit.
Yes.
I think sound is done.
You wanna hurt us?
Burn crucifix's sound is $10. We need photos bad, but it's going to be hard here. It is not touching salt at all.
Wraith on the table.
Wraith is on the table. It's not touching salt, I'm guessing, Wraith. You're welcome to disagree with me. But for the moment, it is trying to hunt, and we are, we need photos. Where's the photo camera at? Oh, you got it. Okay. So, if we get that crucifix on fire, that's one. It's not going to work now, because it's not on fire anymore. Do we have another crucifix in the trucks? Oh, okay. If you catch a spirit form or something, that's also one. Interesting bitch. Hello? Oh, it's just the lights breaking out. We have thrown object, interaction, that's nice and vague. Shadow ghost for videos. And we only have 2 photos, bone and EMF. Shit! It's hunting!
And lit.
Who got first?
In the dream. It's hanging. Yes. He's in a mood. Go downstairs. out behind you. Back upstairs. I think she's done. Oh.
An event right after a hunt. That's interesting. Right. Well, who died first? Well, you just have to tell me, because I heard I don't know who died first.
I'll let Liz tell you.
I mean, you died first?
So, who died first?
Turn on the camera's night vision and immediately there's a corpse. Alright. Here's... Oh.
Power.
Here's what I can say. It's not a myling. All the salt's still intact after all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say Wraith. Could be twins, but it's not touching the salt. And after a hunt and multiple events, I'm inclined to say if it's not touching the salt, you know what it is. Was it you that died first? All right. Well, everyone wins their payout, but to be fair, it was very close. I saw it hunting. I screamed, "It's hunting!" Popped my thing that stuns it and ran in the garage.
You did. I had time to get around the counter, and then we both died. I'm like,
A hiding
well.
spot I sneakily did not declare. Because I'm like, what if I don't die first? Choose the outcome. It was you. Everyone gets exactly what they paid in. I don't know. Who will die next? Ooh, LN. It was very close. That was fun. That was a fun way to do it.
I like it. Lock in Wraith and kick it.
I'm locking in Wraith. Everyone else can pick whatever they want, but I locked in Wraith. That was fun.
Yeah.
That was stupid. I don't recommend it for actually earning money, but that was fun. Okay.
Did it.
Boom.
We got some good evidence out of that, all things considered.
But was I right? Am I getting good enough at this that my tertiary is correct? Have I been playing enough of this freaking game?
Welcome back. I've prepared some jobs for you.
I think maybe I've been playing too much of this freaking game. Actually,
It was the right ghost type. Yay! I died.
I got $5,000 just for letting all of my friends die. $5,546 for being the one that lived.
Wow.
That's a 6x, then it's a 12x.
Oh, right. Let's do it.
Give or take the bone evidence only being worth 25 of that.
The $25 of fun.
That was 2 level ups for me. I'm 97. And I was gonna see if this is here. No, my new badge isn't here yet. I'm gonna have to restart the game to get that, I think. But hey, I should have the birthday badge animated. Now I am in your mouth. Okay. So, Katie was asking if she could watch me draw a bit, and it is after midnight. But we did get one outcome. We did, and last time, to be fair, last time it tells me who got it last time. Last time the first to die was Liz. So it's not always LM. Not everyone gets to know that off the cuff, but it's not always LM. Now, as a follow-up to anyone who is in Twitch right now, remember there are drops right now. You watch like 2 hours of anyone playing Phasmo, it adds up. You unlock the special animated version of the card Chris is using right now, which I might get when I go back to the title screen. I don't know. So if I had anyone to raid, I probably would, but I don't know anybody, so fuck me. Yup, balloons. I think I'm going to call this for now.
Good.
Casual reminder, I'm going to do this real quick. I'm going to stop being on voice to talk in case it's over. On my March for 25, it is not happening when I stream it dick in the morning, but it's fine. Thank you for joining me. We do have subs and stuff now, and stuff you can spend your shells on if you've been doing the bets and whatever. It's that too, but you can do all sorts of things. I set up all sorts of fun stuff to spend your shells on, just so everyone knows. If you haven't looked, there's you can do stuff in the chat. That's bits, but you can also You can highlight your message. You can unlock a random subscription emote. You can do all kinds of stupid, weird crap. You can rotate things for no reason. You can ban me from saying fuck, ass, shit, damn, bitch for a good chunk of time for a solid 1,500 bit. Now, mind you, that not bits. It's shells. The loyalty point of the channel. So if you save them up and you're good at betting, you can take away my favorite thing to do. You bitch. You bastard. You can force me to sing. You can tell me who to raid. Those are kind of expensive, but they do add up. They do add up. And if you have a subscription, apparently, you do get more shells. So enjoy that. I don't get the money yet, but you do get all the fun toys, and I do get to bank it for when I can get the money, which is a goal I have. Hooray! Yes, I'm going to see if she still wants me to do stuff, but it's midnight, and I think Piggy has to go home soon anyway. And I should do something productive with my day, or just eat more pizza and cry, who knows. Or we can just sit here and stare at Liz's ass. Chris, pick a cheek, I'll look at the other cheek. Well, you're just standing there. Her head is inside you. I mean, I guess we can just give you the ultimate massage. Ultimate massage. Ultimate neck rub. Shoulders. Oh my god! I don't like that. I'm going to my hidey hole. Cake! We should be able to eat the cake. Anyway, that's that. And remember, every pony. See you next time. Oh, my friends are dorks.